Salutations, fellow comrades! Today we are going to prove that the Transcontinental Railroad transitioned America into an industrial powerhouse by allowing it to access to expansive landmass that was mostly unused by Americans, which in turn increased the economic potential that will allow America to fulfill the manifest destiny.
Before the railroads, people used to ride around in lousy bandwagons, which were so slow that it would take months to travel to the west. This image here shows the outdated vehicle, which was the prominent form of transportation before the advent of trains.
However, when the Industrial Revolution started in 1820, the arrival of the railroads improved traveling throughout the young nation. The first railroad was chartered in Baltimore in 1828 by the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Company. It was built in pursuit of challenging New York as a major metropolitan area.
The Transcontinental Railroad was first supported by not only the manifest destiny, which is the belief that expansion westward was inevitable, but also by Asa Whitney, a dry goods merchant who believed that the railroad would benefit his business.
Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, foresaw the prosperity to be had with the Transcontinental Railroad, and after backing it, the construction of the railroad, which started in 1863, was split amongst two companies, the Central Pacific and the Union Pacific. These two companies competed for federal funding, receiving money based on the progress made.
This is the man who approved the construction project which had started America into prosperity.
The construction of the railroad had to be slowed to an almost halt due to the Civil War. Still, the railroad immensely impacted it.
For instance, both sides of the war used the railroads as transportation and relocation of troops. Not only this, but the army was able to receive supplies and last longer in normally isolated areas.
Finally, after all the blood-shedding casualties of the Civil War, in 1866, the building of the railroad was able to be resumed.
There were many troubles in building the railroad, such as Native Americans desperately trying to protect their land from foreign invaders, shortages of supplies, and most dangerous of them all, boredom.
At long last, on May 10th, 1869, the ceremonious golden spike was driven into the ground, celebrating the arduous quest that was building the Transcontinental Railroad.
However, this is not the end of the story, as the railroads made America prosper throughout the 19th and 20th century. The many benefits, including wealth, accumulated by this railroad was acquired in many different ways.
The most obvious benefit of a railroad would be the transportation. A trip from east to west, which would normally take months, now only takes weeks. This is a phenomenal increase in efficiency, which is representative of the progress that the railroad created.
One primary source reports that even during winter conditions, like in the snow, the Schaefer family was able to comfortably travel lands that in bandwagons would be too dangerous.
There were many advantages of the Transcontinental Railroad that boosted America into the dominant powerhouse that it is today. These advantages were the sole reason that America was allowed to become a global superpower. Unfortunately, this fact is not well known due to the casualties caused by the railroad.
Even though the passing away of many people is a horrible thing, not only did they choose to work on the eponymous Hell on Wheels, the benefits heavily outweighed the costs, as immigrants worldwide, including Americans, as well as people looking for a second chance, were able to actually live their lives because the jobs and communities which sprung up in response to the railroad.
Ambitious Americans had always looked west for new opportunities. Now thousands more look for the advantages of the easier journey by rail and rush to settle the vast expanse of the nation. Towns and cities grew up around the railroads, providing transportation and trade hubs, and bringing people to what was once nothing but prairie and desert.
The Transcontinental Railroad placed the American economy onto a pathway which would lead to the economic prosperity of modern times. The railroad rapidly shipped resources such as coal, timber, precious metals, and even cattle from west to east and east to west, and opened up new markets for the goods produced in eastern factories.
Huge cities like Chicago and others emerged as industrial hubs from which to send western raw materials east and eastern products to the west. By 1880, the railroad shipped $50 million worth of products from coast to coast every year, which, in retrospect, is a huge step up from other countries which were America's competitors in Europe and Asia.
Finally, this one incredibly long railroad sparked the growth of hundreds of other lines. Many of them compete with each other for customers.
The Transcontinental Railroad created a boost in international and intercontinental trade and faster spreading of ideas and expansion of the United States to areas not previously settled. For example, many products from Asia were now easily accessible to both the West and East Coast.
Continental travel of goods and services allowed direct growth through cheaper distribution, as well as increased possibilities for partnerships and exchange of ideas. This movement between coasts allowed for business professionals to have a more expansive idea of their industry and allowed improved access to information and skills across the country.
As the Transcontinental Railroad went into action, changes came very fast and very rapidly in America. Though there was expansion in settled areas within the nation, the country itself seemed smaller as reaching the various locations became easier.
Currently, the U.S. freight rail network has over 140,000 rail miles in operation.
This system employs at least 221,000 people throughout the country and is a large part of our transportation industry.
Our economy depends on our railroad system, but it would not look the way it does today without the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad.
From the 1800s to today, train transport continues to shape our economic and social lives.